FM, WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY. Courtesy Breitbart.
All right, here we go. Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, you know our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're also here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare, and good morning, sir.
Norm is our citizen representative, so sometimes he'll say things that are outlandish because he's representing the citizenry, where I only say things that are calm and sedate.
All right.
We'll see how that prediction works out.
Yeah.
And of course, we're here with Willie H., who is our in-studio genius. He's the one that does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. Call in live, 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
And Will, you guys brought a guest today. Who's our guest?
Yeah, let's check out our guest. Let's see.
I brought in my cousin. She's staying with me for a couple days.
All right.
Her name is Renaya.
All right. Hello, Renaya.
Renaya's in the house.
We may ask for your opinion on something, so don't go to sleep on us. Because you had that look of like a high school student with their head in their hand and their eyes closed and their other hand holding their cell phone. Don't do that. Be attentive.
Listen today.
All right. Listen, we got a lot of stuff that's been going on that you can't write these programs fast enough to keep up with all of the things that are going on in our country. But I wanted to take the first segment and title this "Not So Supreme."
Not so supreme.
Not so supreme.
And I know you thought I was talking about, Diana Ross and those folks, but that's not who I was talking about. See what I'm saying? He just jumped right in there, right? No, I'm talking about the 9 Supreme.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
The Supreme Court's Supreme 9.
Court.
Not so supreme.
Now, here's the point that I want to get to.
I just want to know what happened to our girl that we put in there. What happened? I mean,
she's there.
But she don't make it.
She's making rulings. She's been doing her thing.
Yeah.
She only recused herself on one case that she had previously been involved in before she was a Supreme Court justice. So she had to recuse herself from that case. Now, I say she had to do it. Ethically, she had to do it. There was no law that required her to do it.
Right.
So Clarence Thomas, who ethically should not be involved in any cases involving insurrection, where his wife was out there actually campaigning to overthrow the government of the United States, he should not be involved in any of those cases.
Right.
But he says, I'm Clarence Thomas. We'll talk about him in just a minute.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So the one thing I want us to understand, if you delegitimize institutions in this country, if you delegitimize the processes that we use in order to be able to execute the laws of the country, you actually make the institutions of no effect.
Right.
You turn the institutions into just puffs of air. So the only reason why we obey the Supreme Court is because we've always obeyed the Supreme Court. The Constitution says the Supreme Court is the final arbiter on any judicial decision. Well, that's true, but what happens if you don't like the decision that the Supreme Court makes? Somebody has to enforce the decision of the Supreme Court.
Right.
Historically, we didn't have to do that. The institutions of the government itself just self-enforced it. Everybody has to go along with what the Supreme Court said. But what happens when the Supreme Court says no?
Yeah.
I don't care what you decide.
Such as in Alabama.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Where you had 3 different chances now to draw congressional lines in the state of Alabama, and they send the bad maps to Congress or to the courts. The courts say these are not good maps. They give them back. Then they draw bad maps again. The courts say, well, we're going to hire our own people to draw the maps. The courts then hire their own people to draw new maps in for congressional districts in Alabama, and the Alabama state legislature says we're not going to implement those maps. We don't care.
Mr. Hare, just a quick, do you believe that a precedent has been set? Already.
Absolutely. The reality is, because they've done this already, other states, Texas has done the same thing. Arkansas is apparently doing the same thing. Georgia is doing the same thing. They're just saying, well, we don't care what the Supreme Court says. Only state law rules. Every state should have their own laws for how people get elected, what district lines are supposed to be, and so on. Right?
Isn't this how the gray and blue began?
That's the seed of it, right? That's what this is really all about. Every time you hear them talking about states' rights, they're talking about the right of the state to set rules and procedures that discriminate against one set of people in favor of another set of people.
Yeah.
That's what they're really talking. When the Civil War ended, the survivors of the Southern Confederacy, they tried to join the federal government. That's why they passed the 14th Amendment in the first place. To ensure that African people who supposedly were freed by the 13th Amendment, remember now, all of the people that became citizens in this country before the passage of the 13th Amendment all became citizens by virtue of the fact that they just lived here. If you lived in France, you moved to Virginia, you became a citizen. There was no process. Nobody registered you. You didn't go through Ellis Island, or something. You just became a citizen because you lived here, unless you were black. If you were black, you could say, okay, slavery is no good anymore, 1865, no more slavery. But what are you? Can you buy land? Can you vote? Can you run for office? Can you get a driver's license? Can you steer a wagon, with 2 goats in front of it? What do you get in return for not being free? That's why they had to pass the 14th Amendment to declare that any person who was born in any state, parish, county, district, dominion, territory of the United States is a citizen of the United States by definition. Interesting. They passed that 14th Amendment, but all of those people that were already in the United States who had not been born in the United States, but they were in the United States at that time, people from England, people from Germany, people from France, and so on, who were just in the United States because they just were here. They got to vote. They got to, sign contracts. They got to become council people. They had all the rights of citizenship, but they didn't obey the 14th Amendment. They weren't born here. I say all of this to say that you write laws if you don't create processes that are enforceable to enact and enforce those laws you write become of no effect. So they wrote the 14th Amendment. The third paragraph of the 14th Amendment says that if you have ever taken an oath of loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, if you've ever, and you were soldiers, so you took this oath. If you ever took that oath, you cannot engage in insurrection and then come back later after you engaged in, after you first took the oath, then you went into insurrection against the oath.
Right.
Then you want to come back and say, my bad, I want to be a council person again. I want to be a congressperson again. I want to be president again. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. That's what the 14th Amendment says. Mm-hmm. But of course, you have these 6, justices on the conservative justices on the Supreme Court, and they're going to parse the language and say, well, I know that's what the plain language says, but we're not going to do plain language right now. It's only plain language that you want to do when you want to hurt other people. It's not plain language if it limits your ability to do something that's destructive to the interests of the United States. So I went to this case that is in front of the courts right now, where the courts are hearing or are making a decision as to whether or not the Supreme Court will accept a case that involves establishing that the President of the United States has unlimited immunity. I need for us to understand what unlimited immunity means. Unlimited means no restriction. Immunity means that I am protected. I am insulated from any consequence of whatever follows the word immunity.
Right.
So if I attack the Capitol building of the United States with 6,000 people, and 140 people go to the hospital and 7 people die, well, I did that, but I'm president. I'm immune. That's what Donald Trump's arguing in this case in Georgia. He's arguing that he is immune from any prosecution for anything that he does as president or as a former president. He's immune. Now, the Constitution does suggest that you are, while you're performing the duties of your office, you can't be charged with a crime and prosecuted for a crime while you're in office pursuing the work of that office.
Oh my
Now,
God.
the work of that office, if I go steal a jet plane, from the Austrians, that really wouldn't be counted as the work of my office as the president, right?
Right.
Stealing somebody else's plane would not be,
Right.
But Donald Trump says, no, that's not true. I should be able to steal somebody's plane. He went so far, you all heard him say it last week, he went so far as to say if I shot somebody in Times Square, in fact, I think he said if he shot his mother in Times Square, that you could not prosecute him because he's immune.
Wow. That's where
Now,
you want to be.
if you allow that dog to walk,
That's where you want to be.
you no longer have a country.
Right.
He's always running around talking about borders. We don't have a country if we don't enforce our borders. We don't have a country if we cannot enforce the law that says that an insurrectionist cannot become the president of the United States and pledge loyalty to the country that he just got through engaging in insurrection against. That just doesn't make any sense.
Not at all.
I hope somebody in the audience is feeling this, and you come in and you call about this. These are important issues. The University of Baltimore Law School professor Kim Whaley pointed out that the former president, Donald Trump, has a history of ignoring the court. The court said that you have to honor subpoenas. He said, well, I know that's what the court said, but I don't respect you, so I'm not honoring your subpoenas. What happened to him? Nothing. And because nothing happened to him, what you said a few moments ago, Norm, is what takes place. You establish a precedent.
Yeah.
So now the second person comes along and you got an issue with them and you say, you got to give me some documents. You execute a subpoena and he says, I don't want to give you the documents and I'm still going to stay in office. And what are you going to do about it? You going to fight me?
There's nothing you can do because you've allowed Trump to get away with it.
There is something you could do. The U.S. Marshals don't work for states. The U.S. Marshals work for the federal government.
Okay.
You could send the U.S. Marshals to somebody, pick them up out of the bathroom, give them a bath towel, and transport them to a U.S. jail. You could do that and keep them in that jail until whenever you feel that there's enough punishment has been rendered.
Okay, so Mr. Hare, on the strength of knowing what's right in this country, knowing what's right, what's wrong, how could they allow President Trump to just get away with doing whatever he wants to do?
Because 25 to 40% of the people in this country agree with what Donald Trump is trying to pull. Donald Trump is trying to do today what those people were doing back in the 1950s that were talking about states' rights, the same people that were talking about states' rights at the end of the Civil War. You know, they wanted to repopulate the Congress and governorships and so on, and institutionalize the discrimination and apartheid condition that African people were forced to live in.
We'd go back to the Wild Wild West, states' rights. Everybody would just be doing everything willy nilly. I mean, to me, we have to enforce a diplomatic way of doing things and stick with that and stay with that. I mean, Mr. Hare, as the voice of the people, I'm putting my foot down right now. And it sounds crazy.
That's exactly right. I mean, you have to obey your own law.
Yeah.
If you say that this is a majoritarian multicultural democracy, if that's what you say we are, then you can't pass laws that contradict you being a majoritarian multicultural society. You have to say it's okay for everybody to vote. It's okay for everybody to be able to sign a contract. Yeah. It's okay for everybody to be able to get a driver's license. You know, all these things that are the citizenship rights that you have in this country should be uniform for everybody anywhere. You shouldn't have different rights in Alabama than you have in New York State.
Right, and it's also okay for the Department of Justice to go on in there and grab President Trump and take his butt to jail.
And I like that word grab. I like the word snatch better.
You
it's
like
just
snatch.
snatching in the neck. You know what I mean? Make it hurt. But it's just important that people understand what's at stake here.
Yeah.
If they go along with this idea that the president has unlimited immunity,
oh my gosh,
then you know that Donald Trump will ignore anything that a court says forever.
You know what we're doing? If we allow that, we're going back to the reason that we left England in the first place. You know, I mean, just to be totally honest, there's no way we can go back to that. We fought against this. We don't.
But they won't go back to that. They want to go back to the way the world was before 1776. 1776 set something different in motion. It created the United States of America.
Yeah.
That created a whole set of laws that became, or covenants that became the Constitution of the United States that we are all supposed to be living up to, you know, the values of that Constitution.
Yeah.
Now, I contend that the values in that Constitution that talks about all men are created equal, they didn't mean all men when that word all, they didn't mean all men. They meant all of the men that were men in the United States at that time.
Yeah.
You know, the French men and the German men and the English men and the Dutch men, they were all men.
They were all a little lighter too.
Right. But you were not counted in that men. But you know, we get to Martin Luther Kings and whatnot that all keep saying, you know, what the words say. The word said all men are created equal. So if that's the hustle that you're going to run, then you got to enforce that. You know what I mean? That has to be made true in the law. It's just like when that situation happened with Michael Brown in Ferguson. Remember the child was crossing the street? Police officer pulls him over because he's crossing the street in the middle of a block. He's jaywalking. How many times do people jaywalk every hour in the United States? Maybe 331 million times an hour somebody jaywalks, you know, in this country.
Right.
Why would you bother to pull somebody over for something like that?
Right.
Why would you pull your gun out? He didn't pull the police officer's gun out of the police officer's pocket. The police officer pulled the gun out of his holster himself and pointed the gun in Michael Brown's face. These were all things that should be illegal in this country for the police officer to have done. But because they had different laws, different enforcement of law in Missouri than they had in other states, they got away with doing that in Missouri. This is the same state that had 70% of their traffic tickets were against African drivers, even though the African drivers only made up about 18% of the population.
Wow, 18%. Oh my God.
I mean, that's raw.
18
right?
and 70%. That's whoa.
See, so that's how we end up in the situation that we're in right now. You have these predator type people who are using democracy itself to first get elected and then to appoint officials who actually govern the various executive offices, election offices, and so on in the country, they appoint officials who align with them. And so they want that. That's how you end up being able to have a minority oppress the majority, because the people who implement the laws come from the minority, and they're only going to obey what they want to obey, and they're going to enforce what they want to enforce. That's the position that we find ourselves in today.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was important for us to think about. I want to talk a little bit about. I know that you claim he's not your cousin. You keep saying that, but I'm not feeling you and whatnot. You know, Clarence Thomas says that you were brothers in the same lodge. You know, you used to hang out.
Wait, are you saying my cousin or
Your
Will's
cousin, your cousin. Y'all played on the same basketball
Will.
courts. Okay, maybe that's not true. But what we have now is another article. This is written by Steve Bannon. It was in the Rachel Maddow's online blog site.
All right.
About revelations about Clarence Thomas and his defenders. So here's the deal. Over the course of 2023, congressional Republicans have repeatedly scrambled to defend Clarence Thomas, and their job has just become more difficult because this research organization called ProPublica, they have found proof now that a situation took place where Clarence Thomas was at a 5-star beach in the Sea Island of Georgia. He found himself, I don't really like the way the article says this. They said it like it's something that happened to him. You don't find yourself in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. You put yourself into hundreds of thousands. That don't happen by accident. You had to do a whole lot of things over a period of time for you to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And you're a Supreme Court justice. You've been a Supreme Court justice since the 1990s. So how can you be somebody who's supposed to be so smart and the kind of person that we can trust to create balanced assessments of what the Constitution requires of us?
Right.
How can you be that person and end up in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt after you became a Supreme Court justice?
Let me just ask, Mr. Hare, for personal knowledge, do you have any idea or roundabout idea about how much money Supreme Court justices make?
When he became a Supreme Court justice, in the year 2000, when this research they were studying this time period, a Supreme Court justice made $173,000 a year.
In 2000?
That was in 2000 money.
Okay.
So you got to figure in 2023 money, that's probably more like to $250,000, maybe $300,000 a year. In terms of what that spending power was of $173,000 a year. Clarence Thomas told a congressman who he happened to be on the plane with that I got a lot of debt, that I've rolled up, and I'm feeling funny. I may have to resign, and take a conservative judge off the bench, so I can go hustle out there and make some more money, on my own. Because me and Virginia, Jenny, my wife Jenny, the insurrectionist, me and Jenny, we've run up a lot of debt. And so apparently the congressperson agreed with him and said, but we just can't lift your salaries up, just like that. But I got friends. I got friends who were billionaires. How about I let you go and hang out at some places where my billionaire friends hang out, and you all could accidentally meet each other. And then you could develop friendship with each other. And then you can have, beneficent gifts given to each other. Clarence Thomas sends, a 29-cent postcard saying, Merry Christmas. And Crow sends a boat, or a recreation vehicle, right? or a yacht for a vacation.
Oh my God.
In return for that card, because they're friends, right? That's what's going on right now.
So
again, because the Supreme Court is not governing itself, it's not enforcing any restrictions on itself, you create the precedent that it's okay for fat cats to put valuable, gifts into the hands of Supreme Court justices, allowing them to live real large,
Right.
okay, and with no consequence to it. That invalidates everything that the Supreme Court is supposed to be in this country. Go ahead.
I'm just kind of trying to get a understanding. Okay, Mr. Thomas, due to the fact that he's a justice and that he has the power to render a vote to make things go the way that his rich friends may want things to go, they give him extravagant gifts on the strength of his vote. He's one of 9.
Now, just keep in mind, what you just said there is not a fact. It's what you were saying. This is what could be going on.
Yeah, just kind of. I'm just kind
And
of
if you
trying
just
to
read the tea
I'm
leaves,
wondering why he gets and the reason why I'm even bringing this up is that he's one of 9 on the voting.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they may give him all of this, and it still may not swing the way they want it to swing.
one vote out of 9 is not compelling.
Right.
However, you only need 5 out of 9 to have a majority.
Right.
You appointed 3 of the people that are a part of that 5. You appointed them yourself, right?
Yeah.
You have 2 others that were appointed by a previous Republican president. So you've only got 2 or 3 other people that you can count on to give you a balanced vote. And you don't know where those people are coming from. Sometimes people are conservative, but they vote in a liberal way. And sometimes, the opposite occurs. It used to be that there was some sense of loyalty to fairness, in the judgment of the Supreme Court.
We don't have any justices that lean towards.
Ever since we've allowed these Republicans to have so much control over the appointment process, right, which Mitch McConnell said that's what they were trying to get done. Now that they've done it, you have a court that makes decisions based on what the political positions are of their political party that they were with. They make decisions based on that frame of reference rather than based on what actually is in the Constitution, what the Constitution says.
And these justices stay justices until they die?
Forever.
Oh, my man.
Forever. See, so these things can be changed, and every decision always is the beginning of 1,000 other decisions. So you don't want to change things willy-nilly. But there was a time when there were time limits on Supreme Court justices. It's not in the Constitution that a Supreme Court justice rules for the rest of his life. It's in the Constitution that a Supreme Court could stay a justice for the rest of his life, or you could change that rule and have a Supreme Court justice only live for 15 years or 7 years, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand if you do that, though, you create more possibility of politicizing the court. Because if every 7 years or every 15 years there's going to be a new Supreme Court justice appointed, then you'd wind up with people running for office to be Supreme Court justices. You'd have campaigns and whatnot going on. It used to be that you would trust the president to identify a really qualified person who has a reputation for fairness and accurate, decision making, and you would then send that person to the Senate and have that person vetted before the Senate. And regardless of the person's political persuasion, if they're a quality person, they're not committing crimes, they make good, judicial decisions, you would allow that person to be appointed as a Supreme Court justice. That's the way it used to be. It used to be that you would have John Kennedy, who was supposedly a liberal, appoint justices who were conservative because they had a certain value framework that John Kennedy believed in and so on. But you don't get that now. Now you're getting justices appointed because they were recommended by the Federalist Society, right, which is some organization that claims that they're the godfathers of what the Constitution actually says. Clearly, that's not true, right? They're just the godfathers of putting more of these really so-called conservative I think, more race-based, kind of justices on the Supreme Court. I think that's what's really going on. But I just want us to understand, according to the ProPublica article, they said that Clarence Thomas accepted a stream of gifts from friends and acquaintances that appears to be unparalleled in the modern history of the Supreme Court. Some were defraying living expenses. That means somebody's paying your rent, somebody's paying for your food, somebody's buying your clothes, somebody's paying for your trips, somebody's paying your college tuition for your kids or your grandkids. That's illegal. You can't do that, right? He actually says that there was an incident where somebody bought batteries for the recreation vehicle that Clarence Thomas rides around in.
Right.
Somebody bought batteries for the vehicle. How is that happening? You can't buy batteries for yourself? I didn't tell you what the salary is today of a Supreme Court justice. I told you it was $173,000 in the year 2000. Today it's $293,000, almost double what it was in 2000. And Clarence Thomas's mouth is still poked out, saying, I'm not making enough money. They need to give me more money to be a Supreme Court justice. No, they don't. They should let you go on about your business, give up your job as a Supreme Court justice, and go do whatever other lawyers like you do, and leave the rest of us alone. Has he ever tried a case? That's another story altogether. Okay, I know that we're near our break, according to my watch. Willie, are we at our break? I don't want to break into another subject. We only got 30 seconds. All right, why don't we do that now? We're going to take a quick break and talk to our sponsors. So don't go away. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. Hopefully we're making some sense. I'd like to hear from you.
Wow.
716-878-5104. I have so many numbers in my head, they start running together. 716-878-5104. Let's hear from you. See you on the other side of the break.
FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Norma Carter as our in-studio audience of one. I see a caller about to pop in. Willie, you're going to grab that call. Willie H., who does the live stream of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Hello.
We can almost hear you.
Hello.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
so Willie,
we've got a caller.
in?
We've got a caller.
Okay, let me grab that call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yes.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Not bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Are we making any kind of sense? Norm says that I'm crazy.
Yes, yeah. I just want to point out that I don't know if a lot of people know that back when Clarence Thomas was in college, he was kind of a militant, and he followed the Black Panther. And
he used to fake that. He used to fake out with his little tam and his black leather jacket, his powder blue shirt.
He was a Black Panther?
He wasn't a Black Panther. He went to Black Panther rallies.
He went to meetings. Okay.
But I think that he was just fronting. It's like when I was going to Canisius, in the late 60s, right? There were guys that used to hop up on the desk talking about Ungawa, Black Power, and whatnot, right? Then you'd see them another day, and they were in a completely different costume, and they were with completely different people.
Shirt and tie.
It was real different.
Oh yeah.
They didn't line up. You know, when it came time to rumble, they weren't in there for the fight.
Right.
They were something else. But I'm sorry, Carla. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I guess part of the problem was, I guess, when he got into whatever job he was doing, and people said that he got it because of affirmative action, and he took offense to that, and
of course,
just changed his whole way of thinking. So he want to say he took advantage of affirmative action, but he don't want anyone else to. So
right, he wants it to be perceived that he was a Harvard, graduate, and he's a superstar, and so he got where he was because of his magnanimous, super personality and skills and, all that resume and whatnot. And that may, in fact, be true. He had the qualifications to be in the jobs that he was in. Nobody's arguing that issue. But why would you stop processes that created a more fairness for people who had been treated so unfairly in this country for so long? Why would you stop processes that were designed to reduce some of that unfairness just because somebody thought that you were a beneficiary of affirmative action? Why would you even do that? Didn't he hire an affirmative action wife?
Well, I believe he was head of the.
You're supposed to laugh. You're supposed to laugh when I say that.
He couldn't find any discrimination while he was there. He couldn't find anything. Discrimination is over. I couldn't find anything. I looked high and low, but couldn't find anything going on.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, he's a strange individual. But Mr. Hay, I was just wondering where you are planning on discussing anything about that Jonathan Majors situation.
Jonathan
Majors. He's the guy that's the actor, superstar actor that's accused of putting his hands on I guess it was his girlfriend, and really he was really blowing up big time. And there's some certain things. Well, my brother probably could expound a little more on that.
Yeah, I didn't really follow that story.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you get an opportunity, you could just look it up, because it's kind of bad the way they're treating black people, especially black men, in the criminal justice situation, because by all accounts, and you can look at yourself and see if you thought that he got a fair judging, because he had 4 counts against him, and 2 came out of the jury as not guilty. 1 was a misdemeanor, and 1 was like a traffic ticket, and he was innocent of the 2 major crimes, which could have landed him in jail. But if you get opportunity, just look into it, and maybe Monday and next week sometime.
Yeah, I'll give you some feedback on it. Okay, appreciate you giving me that story. I'm going to write that down.
Jonathan Majors is his name, and if you Google Jonathan Majors, it's all over the place. What happened in the trial?
He's the actor that in Creed 3. He was the newcomer in Creed 3.
I know. Okay.
He fought Creed for the championship. If you want to know who
right. My wife had me watch that movie about 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah. So he's the one that was a friend of Creed and came.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know who you're talking about now. So he got into some kind of trouble because he was accused of domestic violence or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you see what was going on, his girlfriend took his phone from him. They were in a car. She took his phone from him. He tried to snatch it back, and she wouldn't give it up. So she finally got it back, and he told the driver to stop in the middle of the street. He got out the car, and she's pulling after him. And it's like something from a Hollywood movie. He starts running to get away from this woman. And she chased him all through the streets of New York.
He should have ran from her a lot earlier. When he first met her at whatever place he met her at, he should have figured out, this don't make sense. She's not making sense. Let me get away as fast as I can.
Right. But once you see what was going on, you'll probably have a confidence.
Listen, my father gave me a theorem that I have lived by this theorem my entire life. He says, everything that's tall ain't old. Everything that's tall ain't old. Everything that is, I forgot the rest of the theorem now. But basically, he says things are not necessarily what they appear to be.
Yes,
Just
sir.
because something looks like it's something doesn't mean that it actually is.
Yeah.
She may have looked like a really great apple to bite into,
Yeah.
but maybe that's not the apple you wanted to bite, you know? So,
Thank you very much.
all right, take care, brother. Talk to
All
you
right,
soon.
bro.
All right.
Take care.
So this insurrection qualification stuff, there's an article written by Alex Henderson. This was in the Alternate online magazine where I think his name is Kemp, the former Secretary of State for Georgia. You know, he shoots down this Brian Kemp, this theory that how are they trying to say? The Republicans are claiming that 17,000 mysterious votes somehow showed up in the 2020 election total in the state of Georgia. That 17,000 votes got added to the tally after the vote, and that's what tipped the tide in Biden's favor and whatnot.
Oh boy!
I mean, they're making up stuff that just doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes just like complete nonsense, you know. But the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporters, I think it's Greg Bluestein and Tia Mitchell, some other folks that work for the Atlanta Journal, they're saying retelling the same lies over and over and over again for 3 years in a row does not make the lies become truth, even when you're citing bogus online blogs. Kemp's inner circle said he's fed up with the parade of lies about the Georgia vote. A group of Georgia Democrats are trying to get Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who's one of those MAGA Make America Great Again Republicans, trying to get him removed from office because of his role in the fake electors scheme. This is one of the things that I just want to remind us about, because they take so long in adjudicating these issues about whether it was legal for them to put slates of fake electors and try to submit them to the joint session of Congress as if they were the delegates from the Electoral College elected by the voters, when they weren't. A different set of people had been elected and were the slated delegates from Georgia, you know, for the 2020 presidential race. That should have been not only illegal, there should be serious consequences, because it's fraud. Yeah. You know, it's preventing the government from executing the actual process of government. You cannot do that. You can't stop the government from being the government, from doing what it's supposed to do as a government. Yeah. But that's what was being done in this case. And so there should be serious consequences for that. But instead of being serious consequences, Donald Trump and his allies in the Republican Party worked to get people to become secretaries of state in various states who would continue to implement the kinds of treachery that Trump was involved in. Yeah. Not just secretaries of state, getting people who were elections commissioners, people that were election office workers, people that were council people that were school board members. They really have worked to put people into the apparatus of democracy who are anti-democratic people, who will just, further the conspiracies that Donald Trump was engaged in.
He's actually really trying to get people that are very much like-minded to him at a grassroots level, and bringing them in so that they can systematically work their way up, and that's how come we have to background our people and know who we're voting for, and know who we're dealing with.
And this is why the 14th Amendment has to be something that is a primal right, a primal consideration in the Constitution. Because if they were loyal to the 14th Amendment, people like Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones in Georgia would not be the lieutenant governor because he engaged in furthering an insurrection against the government of the United States.
Can't you kind of you don't even run for a job like lieutenant governor. Aren't you implemented into that capacity?
Well, I think in Georgia, the lieutenant governor is like the vice president for the national government. You know, you don't run separately for the vice president. If you're Joe Biden, you're running for the presidency, you have a running mate who is the vice president. Well, the same thing in Georgia. You have a governor in Georgia. The lieutenant governor is a part of the same ticket as the governor.
Okay.
Right.
I just remember a movie back in the day when Robert Guillaume, and he became lieutenant governor,
Right.
and he wasn't a part of a political policy. You know, he actually kind of was like a regular guy that.
No, the movie made him sound like
No,
that.
well, yeah, well, I'm just.
But
yeah,
the reality is he was a part of a political.
Yeah, well, that's
right.
That was my thought process.
Right.
Yeah.
He was part of a faction. But the point I'm making is that you have all of these people who were actually participants in the insurrection who have since then become office holders. They become council people, they become state senators, state assembly people. The Secretary of State in Georgia is an insurrectionist.
Now, I thought most of these people that were insurrectionists were either arrested or eradicated from positions.
No, the people that bum rushed the Capitol building, thousands of them.
You're talking about the backgrounds, people that were in the background.
Right. Those people, the ones that were breaking in the gates and climbing up the walls and whatnot, 1,000 plus of them, they got arrested and so on, and are being, I think 700 or 800 of them have been prosecuted and convicted.
Yeah.
Of their crimes. But the people who orchestrated this thing, nothing's happened to any of them yet. Right. And so what happens is because you allow this thing to go on for so long, it becomes less and less, what's the word? People feel less reactive to the crimes that were committed.
There's less strength there. And now, even if they found out that these people were 100% behind the insurrection in a certain kind of way, you can't arrest them now. Is that
you could arrest them now, but because so much time has gone by, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, well, why are you doing this now?
It's kind of diluted now. It's kind of diluted.
That happened 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's sort of like saying if I killed somebody 5 years ago, well, 5 years have gone by. I haven't killed anybody since then, So you shouldn't be holding me to account for something I did 5 years ago.
Right.
But that's what's really going on right now. You have people who are colluding with each other to use the democratic process to prevent people from being held to account for things they should have been held to account for. If that happened on January 6th of 2021, on January 7th, there should have been 12 or 1,300 people, that were being charged with crimes.
Yeah.
And the orchestrators of those crimes, including, John Eastman and Giuliani and Donald Trump and so on, all of those people should have been up on charges. They should have been investigated, and to the extent they could prove those charges, consequences should have happened to those people.
Have they went after Giuliani? I mean, is he?
Giuliani is not in criminal court, but he's been in civil court. He just had a judgment a few days ago handed down on him, $148 million.
They hit his pocket.
Yeah, he don't have a pocket anymore.
Oh man!
No, he walks around with no clothes on now. He uses a napkin for clothes. I mean, seriously, I don't even know where Ruby Freeman and Shay, I forget Shay's last name, the mother and daughter in Georgia. Giuliani was accusing of bringing in these 17,000 fake votes and whatnot. I don't know if there's enough money left in Giuliani's pocket for them to get any money out of this thing. But hopefully they'll work this stuff out, and some money's going to go to them.
Yeah, definitely.
Because their lives were literally destroyed by what Giuliani did. And Trump should pay a price because he continued to further the lie. I mean, he still runs around saying, that Miss Freeman and Shea were engaged in some subterfuge with regard to that election. So let me let that go. Immigration, the immigration revelation. Trump says that he'll use massive portions of federal law enforcement to keep immigrants out. That's the way the article's title reads, written by Althea Legaspi, writing for the Rolling Stone magazine. But I don't like the way they write that title because the title does not reflect what the article says. What the article says is that Donald Trump is saying that if he's elected, day one, that he's going to marshal as much of the military as he can get, along with the National Guard and the police in every jurisdiction in the country, to find everybody who looks like they're an illegal alien. Well, he's going to say an illegal immigrant. But what he really means is anybody who looks like an illegal immigrant, because nobody walks around with a sign on that says, "Hi, I'm an illegal immigrant." So if you're walking around looking for these people, what are you looking for?
If you look or sound a certain way.
And what does looking like an illegal immigrant, look like?
Yeah.
Anybody who seems like they're speaking a different language than English, if they got a severe accent, if they're dressing in traditional clothes from a particular culture and so on, any of those people could be picked up and deported without due process. And then it would be on them to prove that they were American citizens and they had a right to be in the United States. You can imagine what's going to go on there, especially if you're black and brown. There's going to be no relief for you. They're going to throw you out of the country. You're going to probably get picked up with no driver's license on you or any a compelling ID, and not be able to get back in your own country. That's going to happen to thousands and thousands of people in this country under Donald Trump's administration.
Yeah,
that's going to occur because that's occurred in the past. That's what they were doing in the first administration of Donald Trump. So this is going to happen again. He's saying that he wants to get all of these people out of the country. So you're talking about anywhere from 12 to 20 million people he would grab off the streets. Where are you going to put them? We don't even have detention facilities for 20 million people. Where are you going to put them?
He would make temporary detention centers.
He'd make them sleep outside. He'd just put them in a fenced-in area, and they just be outside. If it's cold, it's just cold. If it's warm, it's just warm. That's what he's going to do, and then push you across into Mexico. Then you become Mexico's problem. Why would Mexico even want you to do something like that? But that's what Donald Trump is purporting that he's going to do if he becomes president in January of 2025. We have to be better as a country than allowing something like this to occur. Why would you even allow that to be said? There should be people railing. See, this is what I don't understand about Democrats. When Donald Trump said this, it was just a couple of days ago that he said this. If he said this, why aren't Democrats all over the country railing at every news media person, every reporter that they can talk to? Do you hear what this man is talking about? Do you know what the consequences would be if this would happen? Police officers would be doing what they did to Michael Brown. You look like a criminal. Get over here. Oh, I'm pulling my gun out on you. Oh, I'm shooting you. Why? Because you jaywalked? You shot me because I walked in the middle of a block across the street? That's why you shot me? This is what is going to happen under the policy of Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, that's
why aren't the Democrats railing at this right now? We should be, I know it's going to sound wrong, but we should be propagandizing about this. We should be just everywhere talking about what the consequences would be if Donald Trump's stated policy became the reality in this country.
Well, that's right. And that's just one aspect of it, Mr. Hare. You know what I mean? When you really look at it, and what I've been trying to articulate is, President Biden is very much keeping a very low-key approach to the things that are going on. And as far as voting, I don't think President Trump really should stand a chance, but we're not getting any democratic ideas out or the things that President Biden has done, and a lot of the country are still leaning towards Trump, which I can't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen reports that have said that Trump is ahead 42 to 33 or something
I mean,
that.
I have no understanding for it. I just don't.
You can tell by how the media talks about stuff. You know, when they talk about the economy continuing to expand throughout Biden's administration, you had a point where you had a 5.9% growth in the economy in the third quarter of this year. You know, you would think that this would all be fabulous stuff that you'd be hearing talked about. But they talk about, we had a 5.9% growth in the economy in the third quarter. But, we've been talking about recession, and it's been being forecast since the beginning of the Biden administration. Recession hasn't occurred. Maybe we're going to have a soft landing. We'll have like a mild recession. They're doing all that kind of. Why are you saying that? Why are you even talking about that? Why aren't you talking about the fact that when Donald Trump left office, we were in a recession at that time period? We pulled out of that recession quickly. The economy continued to expand its job market. The economy continued to expand the size of its gross domestic product.
Yes, sir.
The economy continued to be able to absorb more and more people in the United States. That the government has been able to put efforts in infrastructure together to begin to deal with the climate crisis that we're having in this world, and so on. I mean, all these different things. Why aren't they being talked about just for the merit that they are, as opposed to always giving a naysay?
Yeah.
You mention the positive thing, then you spend most of your time in your reports naysaying the positive thing. But when Trump was president, he said, we produced 4 more toothpicks, than we had, in any time in the history of the country. We had 4 more toothpicks. They'd be running around, talking about Trump produces more toothpicks than ever been produced in the history of the country. And that would be the story all day, every day.
And
why is that occurring?
Mr. Hare, we've been saying it for the longest, and it's just like, for whatever reason, the Democrats, we don't seem to be getting anything out. I know President Biden is the incumbent president. I know he's not running, but something has to be said for the positive things that he's done. In his platform, it's got to be spoken up.
It seems like there is such a drive inside of the Democratic Party, at least amongst the elected leaders of the Democratic Party. There seems to be this impulse not to tick off the Donald Trump type of voter. Why are you so worried about ticking off them? They're not going to vote for you anyway. You could say every positive thing possible about Tea Party people and MAGA people that you could possibly say. They still won't vote for you. Not one of them is going to vote for you. So why are you bothering to curry favor with them? Just say what is true. Say what can be defended as true, and let truth be the light that guides people along the way. And if people are not guided by the truth, no matter what you do, nothing good is going to happen in your society anyway. So you should fight for the thing that you know will always stand. Truth never changes. Lies change all the time. Truth never changes. So if you stand on truth, you're always going to be on solid ground. I don't know why that lesson is not being learned by our national leaders, particularly in the Democratic Party. But quickly, let me go to another. We're at that hour again? I was going to go to something called Liars Have It, where we find that, what's his name? James Comer, one of these, MAGA Republican folks that control some of the processes in the Congress. They were attacking Joe Biden, saying that his family had these shell companies, and money was being put into these shell companies, and that money was then being used by Joe Biden, so that should count as income to Joe Biden, whatever their scenario was. But the reality is, the very thing that they're accusing Biden of doing, James Comer, who runs the investigation committee, he does the same thing. He has the same kind of shell companies for the same purposes, right? They're not illegal, and and they're identical in structure and form to what the Biden family, has been doing. People set up shell companies. For example, if I'm going to have a bunch of income coming my way, and I want to send that income to my daughter, I don't want that income to be taxed all at one time. What I do is I create a company, have that money go to the company as an endowment into that company. That company would pay corporate taxes on that income. My daughter could be treated as if she was an employee of that company that doesn't really do anything except manage, that piece of money. She'd become an employee of that company, and that money would go to her at employee rates, right? So she would get FICA, Social Security credit. She would get payment of federal taxes and state taxes, but that money would pass to her, and it would be clean. It would be 100% clean money.
Hey, Willie,
passing to her.
Mr. Harris teaching us some insider things right now.
I thought everybody knew this. My bad. That slipped. All right, listen, there's not much more I can go on today. Hopefully we got something out of today's discussion. I look forward to talking to everybody on Friday. Get ready for the holiday, because come Monday, we're not going to be here Monday, so we got to get everything we're going to get done before New Year's. We got to get it done on Friday. So hopefully you guys will plug in. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. See you all then.
All right.